straightforward question, and I'm talking to you, Crims. If you'd be perfectly placed to answer this. It's the most obvious question in the world, and we thought about this in the office before the show. Is there another way you can phrase this to sound a little more creative, to give it a bit more imagination? But I don't think there is. You can only really ask in this way: how do we solve prison overcrowding? I'll give you a couple of suggestions in just a moment, but if you've been on the inside yourself, and there's no judgment on what you might have done, not even interested in asking why you serve time at His Majesty's or Her Majesty's pleasure, but you will be at the coalface of the story if you can tell us when you were in there, what it was you kind of fundamentally spotted that just wasn't working, whether it was the regime or whether it was the kind of prisoners that were in there, because I think there's something to be said about that. How do we solve prison overcrowding? What is the answer to that? 0344 499 1000. We have a huge crisis in our prisons. Newsflash, we've known this for years. I've never been able to fathom quite why it seems impossible for governments to build a prison. We seem to be able to build multi-storey car parks and hotels in about half a year. But building a prison, essentially the same deal, but with thicker walls and bigger locks, has eluded governments forever. Now we have this overcrowding issue that has put the service quite literally at breaking point. We've got a shortage of staff. We've got staff that are there under pressure, reoffending rates off the scale. It's kind of deja vu when it comes to reoffending for those working on C Wing, for those prison officers, because prisoners in and out regularly. It's a merry-go-round. Prisons have a problem with drugs, with violence, with self-harm, and rehabilitation seems to be a redundant word. And then we scratch our heads wondering why time and time again people are going back to prison. Politicians of all colours claim they have the answer. They appear on programmes like this to tell us that everything is in hand and the problem will be solved. But it never is. So now we have a crisis like no other crisis. Fewer than 100 places in jails, in men's prisons in this country. Could you not morph women's prisons, not with men's, by the way, could you not, I mean, I don't know what the populations are like in women's prisons, but could you not take some women out of women's prisons and just make them men's prisons and spread the women out to all the other women's prisons? I mean, it might sound stupid, but in the absence of any logical response from our political masters, maybe that is the answer. So we scratch our head on this, and then just like an episode of Roadrunner, where Wile E. Coyote tries to come up with ever more imaginative ways to solve the problem, we've got the latest idea from the Labour government, and that is to send prisoners serving their sentence potentially to Estonia. To Estonia. The Baltic state said it offers to rent out spare capacity to other countries. I don't know what they're doing in Estonia, but they don't have a prison problem. I think I'm right in saying that their prisons are only 50% full. So something either happens in the mindset of criminals or the justice system or just people in terms of committing crime. Government sources said the controversial solution was on the table because of the severity of the situation. So we've now got 83 spare places, and we're thinking of lobbing people on a plane to Estonia. So their low crime rate, completely at contrast to our prisons, half-empty prisons. British prisoners could go there. Apparently it could boost the country's finances in Estonia and solve us a problem because it doesn't apparently cost quite as much. It's funny, by the way, how the Labour Party sort of wet the bed with hysteria over Rwanda, claiming that using a third country to solve our problems was not the way we deal with justice. And it was a human rights abuse as well. But apparently Estonia's just fine. You can do that. They don't mind about Estonia. That works just brilliantly. But the fundamental problem, two things I think you should do. We've got 10,000 foreign criminals in our prisons. Get every single one of them out tomorrow on a plane. Bang. Ta-ra, fella. You're off. We don't care about you can serve it in your own country. So that's number one. That gives us 10,000 places. The other problem, of course, is the people that we jail that really shouldn't be in jail. I mean, you know, I don't know, There's a fellow, this was in Ireland, I think, where there was a evangelical teacher he refused to use pronouns in the classroom. And as a result, he got sacked from his job and then banned from turning up in the grounds. There was an exclusion zone for him. He wasn't allowed to come back to the school. So he broke the court order. He didn't go to jail because of the pronoun thing. He went to jail for breaching the court. But it just made me think, really? You got a bloke in jail. Somebody else nearly got jailed for silent prayer outside a clinic quite recently as well. You've got these kind of crazy situations. We don't put... There's no point in putting people like that in jail. If you gave a stiff community service to those people, I think you'd be onto something. So we've arguably got lots of people that shouldn't be in jail. There's that. We got foreign criminals. There's that as well. Some people who wrote hurty words on Facebook. There's that as well. Those kind of people, I mean, just get real on this, government. Can anyone sort it out? How do we solve prison overcrowding in this country? 0344 499 1000.